recently the president of the sports federation he called MMA fighting basically bare knuckle cage fighting. You have a comment on that?
Well, it's look, I try not to argue with stupid people. He's got we're not bare knuckle, so I'm not sure what it is he's referring to. I'm not a supporter of bare knuckle fighting.
Breaking arms and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's basically what's going on in his opinion.
Sure, if he thought that there was somebody with bare knuckles, I'm with him. Let's ban that. That's not what we participate in. There's also no such thing really as MMA. We keep using that term. It's a term about a decade old. Sport that you're seeing is a sport of pankration. It's a national sport of the country of Greece. It was in the Olympic Games until 1904. They made a push to return to the Olympic Games in 2004 when the Games returned to Athens, and they passed every step except having a venue. They tried again in 2008, 2012, and they're trying for 2016 in Rio. They may be back in the Olympic Games, but we will be called what we should be called, what we've been all along, which is the sport of pankration.
What's your predictions for Chris Weidman and Anderson Silva?
Well, you have to understand in the history of combat, boxing, wrestling, and MMA, in the history, never, not one time, ever, has a rematch favored the older fighter. And don't tweet me and tell me these guys were 2 months apart. Okay, there's a 10-year age gap here. It will be amazing if Anderson can beat him, but there's a huge gap. Let's not forget, Chris Weidman dominated him on the ground and then got up and dominated him on the feet. This was not a close fight. It was also the worst Chris Weidman I've ever seen. I've never seen Chris Weidman fight so poorly. He slowed down significantly. When he was on top in the first round, it was off a very sloppy takedown. He gave up position going for a very reckless submission. He was taking a couple of kicks. He just didn't fight very well, and he still dominated and ended with a finish inside of 7 minutes. It's very hard to imagine a scenario where that gets changed. But Anderson Silva is a very smart fighter. He's very skilled. He's very experienced. I just don't think he wants to be in there. They asked him right after he lost, and he openly said, my time as champion is done. And I believe him.
Going back to Luke, obviously you're here for him. You're going to be in his corner. Have you taken him under your wing?
Well, it's been mutual. I've gotten as much from Luke and Jimmy, who's here as well, as I've given, and probably more. And we were on the set of The Ultimate Fighter. We always referred to Luke as the fifth coach. This guy coached all the time. He would show up to workouts with notes, pages and pages of notes that he'd taken the day before on what matchups we should have, why, strategies on winning. And when they're in that house, there's no television, there's no phones, but somehow he got his hands on pen and paper in bountiful amounts because he would come in more than prepared. And he's a very smart guy. He's very intelligent when it comes particularly to the fight game. He's always ready. He's a great workout partner. He's a great guy. He's in a very tough fight Saturday. But they all are. There's nobody we could put him against where I couldn't say, wow, this is a really tough fight. So is he. He was in the toughest fight, an absolute war to get into the house. He was the first pick on our side because of how hard he pushed the pace, because of the shots he was able to take. He then got fight of the season for one of his fights in the house against Dylan Andrews. Dylan is an outstanding fighter, and that could have gone either way. He then had a dog fight in his UFC debut. So having tough fights is nice to say, but it's just not something that bothers Luke. It's not something that intimidates him, and it's not something that he's not used to. If I was to guess, I think he prefers it.
You had a lot of criticism of talking your way into title fights. Do you think that's unfair?
Well, I don't know that I've ever been criticized for it. I've always taken it as a compliment. If you can go out and pick a fight, do it. There's no job in the world that you don't interview for, and that's through speaking. And this is an art, if you will. We're doing martial arts. That's a form of expression. And as human beings, There's a lot of ways to communicate, but the most effective is through talking. It's what separates us from the animals. And if anybody doesn't understand that concept and they're still out trying to send messages with smoke signals or tap it out in Morse code, that's on them. But I don't apologize for using my mouth.
You think there will be a third fight with Anderson Silva?
I would sure like a third fight with Anderson. I look at him differently now. I don't have a tremendous chip on my shoulder. But I also don't accept those fights. I don't accept the outcome of either one of those fights. And
why not?
And well, in the first fight, that would have been stopped 10 different times had the roles been reversed. I hit him 303 times. He hit me 11 times. That means that 10 different times in the fight, I hit him 30 unanswered times. That referee would have pulled him off me so fast if that happened one time. Referee didn't know what he was watching that night. He was so surprised at what he was seeing, and he didn't stop the fight. In the second fight, I fell down. He didn't knock me down. They ruled that fight a knockout. I fell down. In MMA, the most dominant rounds you can have is called a 10-8 round. It's also extremely rare. Most fighters will go an entire career and never have a 10-8 round. It is the perfect 10 in comparison to gymnastics. I personally have had 3 10-8 rounds in my life, and they were all against him. My shoulder. I'm not looking to disparage Anderson. He's had an amazing career. He will be remembered forever as the great that he was. He made a lot of money, and he beat a lot of really tough guys. I'm not attempting to disparage him, but to act as though a 38-year-old guy who's pretty openly said, I don't want to do this anymore, is going to beat an undefeated world champion 10 years younger is not something, people love to say that, but they're not going to the window and putting their money down and making a bet on that. It's just not a likely scenario.
Two more questions.
One question for you. I don't know if you've heard, Chael, but Tito Ortiz on the UFC's website is being taken off the Hall of Fame list, and this was only as recent as 2 days ago. What are your thoughts on that?
I am so confused by the actions of some of these guys. I am so confused by the guys that have sat down and ate at the table that Dana White set, that have then come out and done everything they could do to take a pound of flesh, not only from Dana but the organization. I don't understand it. I don't agree with it. It's mind-boggling. They'll come out and say everything they can to hurt the organization that helped them, that helped everybody in this room and everybody watching. And the reality is Dana White could sign Tito Ortiz tomorrow. Dana White could make one phone call to Tito and Tito would sign on the line. And I don't understand why he would say anything to Dana other than thank you.
Chael, you mentioned the possibility that you might ask Anderson to actually coach for you. It seems like that was maybe a Chaelism, for lack of a better term, but I feel like maybe you were being serious. How serious would that be if you would ask him to come down and help you coach?
Well, Anderson Silva was one of my first thoughts to ask. And again, that wouldn't be for me or for Anderson, but that would be for the young men who are kicking and clawing and trying to get into the UFC. I think that his knowledge of the sport is tremendous, but also his ability to communicate in a Portuguese atmosphere, excuse me, would be very helpful. So I think he's got a relationship with Wanderlei. So it's probably not likely, but that doesn't mean I won't reach out. I'm not unhappy about it. You know, I want to fight with Wanderlei, and he's put a number of restrictions on the fight. You know, well, I'll only fight you if, and it's been a big checklist where I've had to go through all of his ifs. He even asked for a 30-minute fight, which doesn't exist anywhere in the world. And for a guy that gets tired in 30 seconds, I thought it was a bit of a strange request, but I agreed. And then he put the stipulation of Brazil, and I think he thought that would keep me away. But again, it's one more thing on the checklist.
Now, you're not the most popular guy in Brazil, obviously, and Dana White stated there will be security staff to look after you, so I don't think that will be too much of a problem. But will it be a problem to get guys to want to be on your team and to teach them stuff? Because most of the Brazilian fighters might have some, animosity towards you.
Well, I'll say this. I have a job to do. When I said that I would go coach them, I meant it. I will go there to coach, and it won't be to pick fights with Wanderlei or to build up a fight between he and I. I will be there for one reason, and that's the coach. And how the athletes respond, it's a two-person sport here. They need to do their part, but it's their experience, and that'll be up to them.
What do you make of what he said about, I think he told one of the outlets down there that he wanted American fighters down there, for you to coach American fighters, him to coach Brazilian fighters, all against each other? Like a true USA versus Brazil thing.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm against it. I hadn't heard that comment. I like it. Look, let's make sure we're clear here. Wanderlei Silva lives in Las Vegas, Nevada. I live in Westland, Oregon. Neither of us are from Brazil. And the first chance he had to leave his countrymen, he did. He owns a business in America. He pays taxes to America. He enrolled his kids into an American school system, and he has contributed a grand total of $0 to Brazil, to any Brazilian charity. And there is no Brazilian charity that will come forward and defend him and say otherwise. He left that country. He was robbed the last time he went to that country at gunpoint. That is also on the record. So they're bringing in two outside guys.
You think he needs security down there too, the way you do?
I don't know what he needs, and I'm not focused on him in that regard. I think he should enjoy the remaining moments that he has in this sport.